Good evening. I am calling this Monday, August 25th, 2025, regular meeting of the Mancos RE6 School Board to order. The time is 6:08 p.m. Apologies for being slightly late. Tiffany, roll call, please.
Emily Hutchison Brown.
Here.
Tim Hunter.
Present.
Greg Finelli.
Here.
Rachel McWhorter. Here. Victor Figueroa.
Here.
Thank you. Mrs. Hazelton, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to thank all of you both that are present, both in person and online. For those that are here in person, please turn off your cell phones during the meeting, and if you would like to hold a sidebar conversation, please take this out into the hall. Just a gentle reminder that our Board of Education is governed by our own Mancos School District Policy B section policies, which can be found in our own updated board books or board handbooks and also on the school website. I would like to remind everyone that this is a meeting of the Board of Education in public rather than a meeting with the public. As a Board of Education, we have agreed to adhere to Robert's Rules of Order, and the board should notice that they are now inclusive in the agenda. This year, it is my personal goal as president of the board when moderating our meetings to promote fair, efficient, and respectful conversations ongoing. In doing this, I ask each of you to be mindful of Robert's rules, and I will hold us accountable, insisting on adherence thereto. In accordance with Robert's rules, the chair will be paying special attention to the following items. The chair shall be responsible for the restatement of a motion and placing said motion for vote. All members shall be recognized by the chair with equal opportunity for their voice to be heard in discussion and throughout the entirety of the meeting. The chair shall announce the results of each vote. The chair shall be responsible for the articulation of any subsequent actions or action as needed or dictated by the board or any official board vote. And all members shall raise their hand and be recognized by the chair prior to speaking along the normal course of the meeting and business. It's during this meeting that there is also a time for public participation. Comments will be heard, and we will require anybody who wishes to speak to sign up prior to the start of the meeting in person. In-person commentary will be limited to 3 minutes. At this time, are there any changes or additions to our current agenda?
Madam President, I move that we amend the agenda to strike the strategic plan for a discussion and action item. As we have already seen this in June. And also under number 9D, policy second review, BCO9, JJA3, and JJA3R, I would like to move those to the November meeting.
And BCO9?
BCO9, JJA3, and JJA3R.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second that.
All right, so to restate that motion, we have a motion to amend the agenda to remove both 9B from the consent agenda and 9D amended as to remove JJA3 and JJA3R and BCO9. Tiffany, will you please, I have a first and a second. Do we need any discussion? No? Please call the question.
Miss Emily Hutchison Brown.
Aye.
Tim Hunter.
Aye.
Craig Finelli.
Aye.
Victor Figueroa.
Aye.
Rachel McWhorter. Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Do we have any public participation at this time?
No, we do not.
None? Okay, excellent. So we're gonna move right into our reports to the board. Obviously, it is too early in the year to have a board report from any students. However, some of our work session conversation was in alignment with encouraging student applicants for board voice. And you will see that we did remove the piece of the agenda that is focused on that particular policy, and we will roll that forward. in an effort to align our needs with our policy. Is there anything that anybody would like to add to that student voice discussion before I move on?
I would just say that I think our continued commitment is to have students on a school board. And that we're going through a process of trying to figure out the best way to communicate with our students on the opportunity that's available for them to be on the school board.
Tim, anything?
No, this isn't.
Audrey?
No, I'm really excited about the opportunity to have students on a school board. I haven't seen it in full action before and excited to work with our high school team and how we can help inform, recruit, and really bring their input into this process.
Rachel?
Just that I think that we need to do step back and kind of look over a few things, and then that way we can bring forth a much better plan.
Probably just that, we'd like for the students to realize and understand that the impact that they can have on decisions and activities of the school board, the district, and the community in general is huge with, being on a student board seat. So take the opportunity, that's very valuable.
So in an effort just to restate that conversation, we are not pushing the student board seat out. We're pushing it back in an alignment with district staff and in a effort to make it a bit more accessible and aligned between the board and the staff and the students all together. So more to follow with that. All right, I believe that Mrs. Hazelton, you're going to cover the district accountability committee with a quick update to the board on that.
Yeah, a quick update. I had the chance to meet with Sarah Rank, last year's accountability chair, community member parent, and we had a chance to talk through kind of the purpose of the DAC, which is making sure that we have a community parent and teacher voice that's inputting information and sharing that with the board based on all the things that are happening at the schools and what's worked in the past, and also some of the goals for the future, which include bringing in some more kind of topic area committees into the accountability committee. So we discussed a plan to launch that. And that we have our first accountability meeting. It'll go into Mancus Matters this week on September 9th, and we're inviting our community to come and be a part of that. It'll be kind of a come together, learn about what the accountability is and what it can be, and how we're going to shift a little bit this year to have it rotate around these topics of the committees, which are financial accountability, administrative oversight, and human resources accountability, wellness accountability, and academic achievement and outcome accountability. And so you'll see that reflected in the different meetings, so that parents that we hope to have a nice seesaw for community members, but also that parents who might have or teachers have a particular interest could plug into, say, the November meeting if it's one of those areas that they're really curious to learn more about. And so we'll have more about that coming out. But we got a good plan underway.
Any comments or questions? Okay. As always, I will remind everyone that it is with only the participation of our Mancus Blue Jay families and not just staff, that things like the District Accountability Committee, the PTA, the Booster Club, and so many other volunteer organizations work. And when we don't have anybody participating, they tend to be very slim and they're not really functioning the way they should. So I would encourage, if you're in attendance at this meeting or you're watching, to consider raising your hand to have an impact. It will bring you closer to the inner happenings and the workings of what's happening in the district as a whole. It is, I think, the path that many of us followed by getting involved with our children in the school, whether it was PTA or DAC or homeroom parent or whatever it might have been. That is one area that actually all of those, including the Booster Club, are all areas that need people to raise their hands. And so I am going to implore and ask early on in the school year that people consider doing. It's important. Okay. Moving forward, Mr. Figueroa, you typically report on both LRC and CASB, so I'm going to ask if you would do so now for us,
Okay.
please. Together.
So, I would just have two things in the LRC update. Just on August 21st, the Colorado General Assembly returned to work for a special session. And that work continues as we speak. The two areas, what they're trying to address is the $750 million budget shortfall due to the federal tax and spending bill passed by Congress. Again, they're trying to figure out when they ended the session at the end of last session, which was in June, or at the end of May. They had a balanced budget, but because the federal government had passed the federal tax and spending bill, which affected each state and how they tax or how they gather taxes from their citizens. We are now in a shortfall of $750 million. So they're trying to figure out that. And the only other thing that they want to really try to address is this artificial intelligence. In regards to AI, it's related to the Senate Bill 24205. And basically, it really has to do with how districts are managing AI in their school districts, and the bill addresses that. But there's some changes that need to be made, and so they're trying to figure that out. If there are folks in our community or on wherever, there's a story in the Colorado Sun, which I just linked on my document for people to read. And it just explains more about what has changed at the federal level that affects Colorado and why they're in a special session. The second thing I wanted to update folks on LRC is that CASB staff has moved to a new bill tracking system called First Democracy, and it lists all the bills as it's actually introduced. And as you know, all of us kind of keep our eyes on the new bills that are affecting public education. It's also on our website. I would ask that we change it to this link now, because this is the new link. The old link that's on the website, I believe, is no longer operational. And so for folks and for us, if you want to keep track of these bills, please go to this particular link. And if you need me to send it to you, I know it's on my document, so it just needs to be put over to the website.
It's pretty slick.
Yeah.
It's very easy. And it also, just to add to your narrative, I don't know many of us that love to dig into these things. But what CASB's demonstrating now, it's a lot easier to read. It tells you where it came from, what the last action was, when it was reviewed. I mean, it's a very nice summary. So I would encourage you all to look at it.
And I know throughout the year, we all keep track of that stuff periodically. So that's all I have for LRC right now. CASB update, just some dates to keep in mind. The CASB has let me start over on that. We had a regional meeting on August 21st. I was unable to attend. I think that some folks attended. Does anybody want to give an update on how the regional meeting went and what you learned?
Sure. If you guys notice, I actually passed out I shared with the board this evening, all of the nice, color, documents that Tiffany made for us. Those were just handouts that I thought were, interesting. We didn't exactly go over this, but every year we're asked to, whether or not we would like to give CASB a proposal of our position. And, as a district, and in the past we have done so. So there's a document in there in regard to how a proposal becomes that full position. For understanding and whether or not it's adopted by CASB and then turned into a resolution. There's also a really great graphic about how CASB or how a bill becomes law in Colorado, which goes back to that tracker sheet, which is all of historically how these things come to light. What the meeting really largely entailed for the regional 12 school districts, and Mrs. Hazelton and I were in attendance, was what realistically are our challenges as school districts, as school board members functioning within region 12 for CASB. We did talk a bit about the adequacy study. There was a couple of different adequacy studies that were done. The shocking result is that there is not enough money for public education. Those are posted, I believe, on the CASB website. And there were a lot of conversations around legislative priorities, whether or not that is to involve more than just funding or funding alone, and how funding along with federal policy, and then of course our role all ties together. So it was a lot of conversation. It was good conversation. The interesting note for me was that the Rural Alliance has started a campaign called the Get It Done campaign. And I was largely unaware of that. And it's actually in my notes to share it with you all because the Rural Alliance is really trying to lift up the public education of the shortage of funding for rural districts and bring light to the inequity and why and how to make changes and how to participate. And as a member of the public, how you can have your voice heard. So the Get It Done campaign is one thing I would encourage everybody to take a look at. Also, CASB has a new launch pad coming, which is I thought it was pretty cool because it is going to be tools and professional development largely related to roles as a school board member, joining a school board. We're coming up on a public election. It's about 5 hours of training that someone can watch at their leisure. So that's a pretty big benefit for belonging to CASB. And then also they're changing LRC to LRAC. So it's an action committee now instead of just a committee. So there's 5 million acronyms and so we'll add that to our list. That's what I really valued out of the meeting. Was there anything that I perhaps skipped that maybe you wanted to also raise?
No, I mean, for me personally, it was just a chance to start connecting with the other districts and the school board members across our region. So that was really helpful. I am noting that the social media guidance would be good for us to add to our communication plan. It mirrors what we were talking about with teachers at the beginning of the year as social media gets smarter.
Social media guidance was great, and then role of the school board's great. Both of these were really good, which is why I have them copied and passed them on to all of you. And I will commit to getting you all a link to the Get It Done campaign that Rural Alliance is doing. And in fact, I'm gonna.
And I would say that it's actually the Get It Done is from Great Education Colorado that the Rural Alliance is promoting and a part of. So it's kind of a consortium of folks working together to get that towards equitable funding.
And for us, I think super critical since we are all part of the rural school district. So that was the meeting.
Well, thank you, Emily and Ms. Hazelton for the update on CASB regional meeting. Just a few things to think about. This 2025 Fall Conference and Delegate Assembly is September 5th and 6th. So I will be attending that meeting. Just some information for folks to know. The opening general session will be about communicating confidently, confidentially even when you're put on the spot. So it's just gonna give you some strategies on how to communicate when you're put on the spot, but not do it in breaking confidentiality. So I'll let you know what kind of strategies they share about that. And then the main part of the reason we come together is for delegate assembly. And the delegate assembly, just as a reminder, is the opportunity for all of our CASB representatives to come together and discuss and debate and vote on proposed changes to the CASB legislative agenda and legislative resolutions. And again, to remind folks, the legislative resolutions are resolutions adopted by the CASB, the core CASB representatives, which represent each board across the state. And those resolutions are then moved to our advocacy groups in CASB that then speak with our legislators and try to advocate those types of resolutions which they want to turn into laws that support public education. And so I sent everyone, like I do every year, the booklet of resolutions that are being proposed this year. And I asked for some feedback. I'm gonna leave on the 3rd. So if you have any feedback or if anyone wants to share anything that they'd like me to advocate for as I'm representing this board and the rural area, please share now or let me know. And if you do share, please send it to everyone so everyone can see your proposed changes to or the support of something.
Okay,
And then lastly, CASB's 85th annual convention is December 11th through the 13th. And again, this is an opportunity for the board to come together and have a professional development session, not only as a group themselves, but also with CASB and with some of the professionals they invite to this conference. Some of the things that we as board members are exposed to and that we learn from really is about legal matters that are up front right now in our state. How do we conduct school board meetings? And again, a review of the process and procedures. School board policies, which is a big part of the work we do. Community engagement strategies. Those are just some of the things that are presented by professionals in the field to help school board members conduct school board meetings and engage our community in an appropriate way. So that is again December 11th to the 13th. It'll be after our election, and we may have changes, we may not, but whoever is here will be moving forward to this conference and work together with Ms. Hazelton and CASB to continue to work as a team that we're trying to do. And that's it.
excellent. Any questions or
I have a question.
comments?
Craig, have you gotten confirmation on doing the session?
Nothing official,
Okay,
but I think there's positive movement on,
okay.
so.
Looking good. How's that?
And then a follow-up on that, do we have a room? Do we have everything else set up in case it is a go?
Yes. We have the rooms reserved, some on standby, and we've also are going to reserve some extra space outside of the Broadmoor, just to hold. Should we not get the ones on waiting, I guess?
So yes,
We got a plan,
they're all
right? Definitely, we got a plan,
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, and those dates will go into our rolling document as well. And Victor, just to reaffirm, since you are attending the delegate assembly at the beginning of September, I am going to add a update from you in regard to the same at our September 15th regular meeting of the board.
Hmm.
Okay, and that is the 5th and 6th. We do have a work session, I believe, on the 8th, so you can even bring it to that work session, but then I'll want to publicly report out.
Yeah.
Just to kind of give you a heads up. Okay, all right, perfect. So we're gonna move on to quickly just an update on board linkage. As it is an election year and there are 2 board seats up for election, I am mindful of the fact that it probably isn't the best time to have everybody sign up for board linkage just yet. But we will likely start that conversation in November and it'll wrap in December, which means that we should all be at least considering what our linkage may be, should we be sitting at this table after November. And keep that in mind because we will only have 5 months to do so. And we may even have conversation around how we do that. So that's where we're at with that. There was no documentation in the agenda, but we do have time for a board report in regard to BOCES. So Mrs. McFarland, will you give us a BOCES update?
Sure. Quick update, didn't really have anything to add to the agenda. We had first read on 67 policies, so that was very fun. If you'd like to see those, I will share them. The main thing was, it is confirmed that Cortez did apply for the reorganization. And we, as a board, did vote to, with the superintendent's recommendation, that the BOCES that we approve of Cortez's
Oh,
reorganization. We will not fight it this year. We have, it is still up to CDE to make that decision. And I believe that isn't going to be until November is when the decision is made. But the decision was made that we will bless them. Yes.
Why was the decision made in that realm?
Mostly, we had a really good report from Rick, out of Pagosa. And as Pagosa is the next largest school district, it's gonna affect them kind of the most. But mostly, the feeling was that it's not working right now with Cortez, no matter what everyone has tried, and they brought in, a mediation. I mean, they've done several things and the relationship is too far beyond repair. So the recommendation is that we do not oppose the application to reorganize. And so that way then, if CDE does go ahead and approve of that, then that will take place. BOCES will have to reorganize starting next year, so starting in January. They are looking at potentially 20 to 25 positions. The hope is that Cortez would probably absorb or hire those positions, as that's what they would need. And they are not sure yet exactly what the financial ramifications will be. We will have that at our next meeting. So at the next meeting, I will have a lot more documentation for everyone.
So Rachel, just for clarity purposes, was that brought up as a vote as far as saying, we're not gonna oppose Cortez leaving? Was that a vote that decided that, or how was that?
It was a vote. It was brought up by the superintendents had already, and you can speak more to this, they had already discussed it in their meeting. And their representative from Pagosa did come to us and ask us as an action item to vote to support Cortez in the reorganization.
Is it to support them or to not oppose them?
To support the application.
Okay. I'm disappointed, but that's just me.
Has there been conversation around the financial impact that will domino affect all of the other districts? Has she started to evaluate what that looks like?
yeah, so I came into this in my first week or two of the job, so I can only speak kind of generally, but all of the projections, financial projections, kind of based within the best that they could estimations, and a lot of documentation was provided. from what I can, say on a general level, just in terms of just coming into it. That there have been numerous conversations within the superintendent's group, with Cortez, and that they were, that they attempted to work out different scenarios and solutions, and just continued to kind of come to going two different directions on that. And I think that they aren't holding any ill will, in that there would be potentially times when there would be collaborative efforts if necessary. So I think now it's to leave it up to CDE to decide about if it's actually to be approved, because that's
So, Ms. Hazelton,
So-
and I brought this up, again, I bring it up every
Yeah.
time we have a discussion about this. And that is, at some point, we, as a board, need to get more numbers, like, prepared for if this happens, how that financially is gonna
Yeah.
affect us. And in preparation, if it's gonna be next year or the next year,
Mhm.
we just need more information about
Exactly.
what that looks like for us. I ask that as soon as we get that information, that you share it with us so that we, and obviously say, here's a plan that we think we can pull together, because I'm concerned that we are gonna end up, we pay what, $350,000 now to buses? Or about that much?
Well, it's not quite that much, but with all the funding and the IDEA and all that, yes, but what we pay out is not that much. It's only like 100 and. I don't know,
Like 170.
yeah.
That's
something like
about
that.
what Megas pays, and that's for our administrative.
Yeah.
Fee for BOCES, and then that's also, so they basically they took, so the way that the finances is the entire administration bill. They split that between all the districts, and so that's the big chunk that we do. And then, and I believe that's 30% of it. And then the additional 70% is split of the districts based on current student population, not based on IEP population, but based on current student population. So it was really important that Rick was the one who came to talk to us, because his district is gonna be impacted the most, because now they're gonna be the largest district within BOCES. So that percentage for them is gonna go up at a more incremental rate than ours will. Ours will still go up, but it won't go up as much as Ignacio, Bayfield, and Pagosa. Well, Ignacio's the most of
So
Well, we've seen some of those estimations, and I think as soon as, part of my work in this first semester is really understanding the budget, and understanding also the, Brandy and I have already met numerous times and meet again with BOCES next week to really understand that, and so that we'll be able to start providing those projections with the next year's budget cycle, because we'll know by then at least what's the status of the report. But it is, it's, we have to know it really deep. You can't underestimate that it might not have a big impact.
Oh, it will.
But there's also, there's also a lot that I'm learning in figuring out about the budget. So I think I'd like to be able to present that kind of more comprehensively as we look at the other areas of the
And
budget.
I would
so
just also say that it's also about the services that our kids are getting.
Exactly.
Now we may have less people in BOCES to serve the same amount of kids that we're being asked to serve, and so that's another impact that we just need to have a better understanding.
I know Cortez is planning on offering contract services to the other districts
Mhm.
when they hire these other people off.
There's an open conversation, yes, I mean, I think that those are things that will all be a part of the conversation.
May or may not.
I think right now
The
it all just
conversation.
depends on where CDE is going to land, and
Okay.
once that decision is made. Each of the applicants, both Cortez with their application and then also with BOCES as their kind of answer or rebuttal to that application. Both of those did have third party people come in to look at where the service level is gonna be and financial, and so a lot of that is in here. I just didn't think that until it's decided to share that, as, again, everything's just up in the air until CDE decides. So once that decision has been made, we will have a lot more information.
I
And-
think.
Yeah.
Just quickly to clarify too, I think it's really difficult to predict or have the magic 8 ball, right, that looks into the future where we know this is all going to land. But what we're all concerned about is no matter what, change is hard to accommodate. And I think that it would behoove our district to do the best modeling that we can and be ready and prepared should any of those outcomes happen, whether it be CDE approve or not approve. They don't have to approve it. The risk is the entire BOCES falls apart, that everybody cannot survive, right? And so I think the outcomes are many, and all we can do is be prepared to pivot depending upon what we're given. We do know that CDE, I believe, they're not gonna say, here's this, and now next month it's this. They're gonna give all districts, right, plenty, there will be a timeline associated with it. So we will have time to prep and plan and look at our budgets and really dive in as to if Cortez provides, wants to provide this or whatever it is that we're presented with, we will find our path forward. Right now, we just know it's coming. That's all we know. Some change is coming. End of conversation, so. Not easy to stomach, but it certainly is the reality that we all face, so. All right, any other questions or comments on the lovely world of Wootsies, or are we ready to ask Mrs. Hazelton for her report?
Yep.
I think you're.
All right, so it's attached and first, this is my first superintendent's report, so thank you for again, just for this opportunity. It's been, I think I'm officially 7 weeks on the job, maybe 8 at this point, but I think in person, it's been about 5 weeks. So this is a singular superintendent's report that is not, at some point, I'll start to identify how these will take shape in terms of content and what's in them, topic areas and whatnot. But I just wanted to hit a couple of the highlights of the report. This is by no means comprehensive of all the things I've been learning and working on since I've been here. I've tried to keep with the approach and will continue to try to frame things in terms of these first few months of around my goals of listening, learning, and leading. So I just want to hit some highlights of this. I'm certainly not going to read it and just give you a chance to ask any questions about it. But I did ask our school leaders to provide some highlights at the Early Learning Center. So many family engagement events that they had underway, really impressive in the way that they were engaging with the families prior to bringing those little ones in, and it's been really fun to be over by their front door. If you haven't seen it, it's newly painted and they have all these great enticing ways to bring students in. Dr. Maribel at the elementary schools had a really strong start, and the elementary school is all just about relationships and routines. Teachers were expressing things are running very smoothly this year, onboarding lots of new students and students jumping in right away. The team is working really closely together to build community. At the secondary school, lots of things are underway with Mr. Hughes in his second year. Now he's had a chance to kind of get his bearings on what's happening, that working with the school around really identifying those common expectations and agreements for students. The X block period in middle school is getting a refresh and redesign to meet students' needs. Lots of new staff, some of our staff returning, really excitement around our new English teacher in high school just shared out a really cool project that students are already underway and producing some really cool stuff. A couple other things, as you know, that the elementary school has a new math curriculum, so they're deep in training and learning and sharing how to get into those resources, really supporting one another. Fun things happening at high school. They're really rolling out the advisory program and having a real cadence to that to make sure that advisory is meeting students' needs, not just like their relational the relational components of high school, but also getting things, to know one another, times that they're working on things. So, Audion has been working closely with that. And just kind of working on that advisory, just tightening up the advisory program. One update, just in terms of Audio and his role is that we just renamed her position to be a little bit more comprehensive of the work that she's been doing. So she's our district instructional coach and curriculum coordinator. PBL is of course one of our leading approaches to the work, and that's deep within her role, but also so that she can take the lead on helping us with those curriculum reviews. And working with schools on all areas of instructional coaching. So she's been working alongside our elementary team and helping them get what they need for the elementary math curriculum. Couple other highlights, just in terms of the listening, learning, and leading. Lots of listening, lots of one-to-one sessions really started with our operational and school leaders. So spending a lot of time with them. So that's really been my primary focus is everybody that's in a leadership position. I'm starting to meet and get to know all of our staff members, mostly making sure I know where everybody is and their roles, and starting to sit into teams to listen and learn. I've started on my outreach with area superintendents, BOCE, CDE leaders, school finance consultants. So just any time and any chance that I've had a chance to get to know all of the people that are going to be my key advisors and thought partners, have been learning from them. And in terms of where I've been leading out is really focusing on building a strong and aligned district-wide leadership team and just that bringing that sense of cohesion to the district. Specifically, we've started our school year with multiple times where the whole district staff comes together to do some community building and some articulation around kind of some of our routines and the way procedures and things like that. Operations, some key updates around operations is a communication plan is we started getting input from our district leadership team and operational leaders like our school office managers, getting them in to the room together to really talk about what's working in terms of internal communication. So working towards really building out a communication plans. Jumped right in with safety and security, so that's underway. I think you saw the update that I sent, and we've shared with our team about that we our SRO has resigned, and that we're in the process of working with Justin to get a new person on board. And our new HR lead is amazing and has just jumped in. I don't know what I would do without her. So she's been instrumental to the success of getting this year off to a good start. So we're working on all of the systems, making sure that our new staff and everybody has what they need. One key element was our staff evaluation process that we were able to put together and share a process and timeline for every staff member last Friday to get us started, which kind of relates to the goal that you all given to me. We do have positions open, so that's one of our main areas. And so we're kind of restarting some recruitment efforts, especially around that math position, to aim towards finding someone who's graduating or available mid-year. And all of our transportation, food service, technology, facilities is off to an excellent start. And Chrissy Millett is teaching me everything I need to know, so we're working closely. Those are the big operations update. I think I'm going to talk a little bit more about the mill levy when we come to do some ballot certifications. We have informed staff about how they can be involved in terms of their role as a staff member. We're working on updating the website, so as everything goes live in terms of the election this month, that's clear. And a couple other notes is that we do have the state assessments results came out this past week around CMAS, Access, PSAT, and SAT. And over the next week, our instructional leadership team will be working to analyze them and integrate those into our school goals and share a synthesis with our community by September 10th around that. And I think we had a quick noting about the board books underway, and Tiffany is leading that, and we are engaged in that. And I think that was a big lift. And I didn't think we were going to get it off by this meeting, but we did. And so I think that's going to really help me in my role to be able to be really effective in terms of the way that we build these agendas. So that is the very fast superintendent reports, but I'm happy to answer any questions, talk more about anything. But that's the high level overview of what's been going on for the last 7 weeks. Life in Mancus, but it's been a great pleasure. I didn't say the right thing, but amazing staff and community of students and parents. It's really great to be here.
Does anybody have anything that they would like to add or clarify? This has-
Sounds like good training.
It's true.
I want to echo a couple of different things. Sitting in the seat in which I do, I would like to also echo that Tiffany Aspermani has been instrumental in making sure that we are all looking at a board book today and that the agenda is loaded in board book. I want to be clear, we're getting our feet wet. It's not yet integrated with our website, but it will be. We're starting with the agenda. We'll transition into policy. It's an amazing tool. She has spent hours figuring it out on trainings. We all did a training this summer, including Mrs. Hazelton. And there will be training that Tiffany will do for the board as well. But just wanting to be very clear, we have to figure out what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong before we can really fully roll it out. What I am seeing is that it will be exceptionally helpful in keeping all of us organized, having insight into agendas and documents and planning and policy and changes and so forth. With a lot more transparency than we've ever been able to have in the past, and as well as organization. So kudos to you, Tiffany. You are jumping right into a brand new job, and that is not easy to do. And then also, just want to reiterate, because I know that there is conversation around the SRO position no longer being filled, that person did resign. I want to just make sure that I clarify. It's my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, that although that person has resigned, we as a campus do still have coverage from the existing Marshall's office.
Justin are
Okay.
covering this.
So we're not left with nothing. And the MOU, which was worked on so incredibly hard. And a member of that committee is sitting in the audience. It will be adhered to and followed, and they're already discussing, and that is interestingly enough, something that we spoke about during that process, just to bring a little bit of history back into it. So that is why you spend the time and do the committees and have the voice and put together that MOU, which now will be followed. So it's a big for me, it's a full circle moment. And it's very, I think, it will be handled very delicately and carefully as it has from the beginning. So this is why we do the work. So I just want to make sure I reiterate that you're on top of that. We are all aware, and it will be walked through as it should be. We're all safe. Okay. Let's see. Any other comments? No? Okay, business manager report. Mrs. Miller, you are here with us today. If you would like to please give us a little bit of your update, that would be tremendous.
It's gonna be pretty short. Chris is coming tomorrow to start the audit. Well, we've been working on the audit last week from remotely or whatever, virtually with each other, but he'll be on site tomorrow and Wednesday. So he should be able to present the audit findings to you guys at the September meeting. So it's the 15th, right?
There's the work session and meetings on 15th.
Okay.
So we'll probably do work session work during that time as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you guys can schedule him in for a segment there, I'm sure he'll be able to present it at that point. I'll talk with him tomorrow on that, but I'm sure we'll be done by then. Yeah, and that's really all I've been working on, is trying to close out that fiscal year 25. And we're rolling with fiscal year 26, but my focus has been closing out the fiscal year. So I really don't have a lot. We'll have more to give you next week or next meeting when the audit's complete.
Excellent.
Just to clarify, we did get the funds released to us that we were worried about earlier in the summer.
Oh, for title grants?
Yes.
Yes. Everything
Everything.
was a false alarm. We got all of our money allocated to us, so we're good there.
Perfect.
So that part's good. Our budget's gonna be moving forward a little rocky. We've added a few things here and I don't know, I'm just gonna have to start crunching numbers and see where we're gonna fall. October count, I'm not sure what our October count numbers are currently.
I think we're pretty stable from our count from last year, and I
That's
think
kind
we've
of
seen any
thinking.
big jump up or drop.
So at least we're not below the 463 number that we had budgeted for. I was hoping we would. Increase that number. To help us with the budget, but I don't think it's gonna happen. I think we'll just stay steady, which is good. Could be worse. So I'm okay with that, I guess, but. It's gonna be tricky. I mean, it's a tight budget. There's no doubt moving forward. So I do still project us about 2.4 million as an ending fund balance for general fund. So we'll see where that goes once Chris does all the fine tuning with the audit, but I think that's kind of where we're gonna end up.
Do you want to add some clarity to the Mancino resolution that we'll read later?
Yep, that was for the mats that we purchased for the safety of, we had already bought a segment of those mats last year, and so this was just an extension to those mats. Which will then obviously make it much more safe for all the kids, so it was in the cap reserve budget already. We put it in there for like $8,000, so this came a little under budget there, and so that's what you're gonna be approving tonight is that. We did cut the check, you'll see the check has been cut in the bills, but it hasn't been mailed until you guys approve it tonight, but I had to cut it with a cycle of checks, so it hasn't been mailed out until you guys approve tonight though. So that's all that is.
Excellent, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Alrighty. Second here. All right, so we did strike from the agenda the strategic plan for the objective. We're not going to be discussing that. However, we did not strike mission, vision, goal, strat plan alignment. So that is for you, Mrs. Hazelton, to present, and I think you're presenting for the public to view as well at the same time.
I'm going to attempt to, yes.
I'll give you a
You
second.
might jump back up here, but I think I can do this really quickly.
Yeah, no problem.
So this is in. Present my screen.
The green button share.
Share, oh yeah, I'm used
There
to.
you go. It needs you to do something first.
No, it just is turned not hearing anything from the monitor. I need to share.
There you go.
Share, okay, we're going back here. We go to. Please, so please. Trying to share my screen. Help me. Share. There we
There it
go.
goes.
All right.
It's almost like your clicky buttons just don't like to be clicking.
Just want to get you on.
Oh, thanks, Steve.
All right. All right, well, so at our last work session, I shared an update on how I was working toward taking our strategic plan and looking at it from the lens of what is the great work of the school district that's been underway and ongoing, and how do we bring that into focus for the 25-26 school year in terms of identifying our priorities and being able to align around a few key goals. So after talking with you all about that, it made sense to bring it back and kind of with a synthesis of kind of what's happened so far, and then what are our next steps with aligning the strategic plan. So the purpose of the alignment is really to engage in alignment and articulation of our strategic plan to include the 25-26 goals and district-wide priorities. And so as I came into this role, I was shared all of this great work of the school district around the strategic plan, and I'm just showing the, for those of you that have had a chance to, I know you all know it well, engage with it, but the really all of the things around the 4 strategic areas, community connections, culture, climate, portrait of a graduate, and climate and culture in the strategic plan. And then I was also shared all of this great work around the portrait of a school district, which also has a lot of comprehensive elements to it, to bringing together kind of what is the comprehensive program and work of the district in service of students and the mission and vision. And so what that brought to me is, so I have this period of listening, learning, and leading, and trying to take time as a new superintendent to sort out, you know, what is the status of the district, what are the roles, what is working, what's all of those things in my first part of my year as a new superintendent. But also we have students right in front of us. And so we need to make sure that we have a really clear plan for the 25-26 school year that everybody can get around, and that we have articulated goals. And so those were left unarticulated. And I appreciate that, because that gives us a chance to look at it together. So the rationale for this work is that we have a really robust and complex plan. And we need to do this process to ensure every staff member sees their immediate connection to their role this year in the work, and that we can really fine tune what it is we're going to prioritize in our work together. And what are the other things that we're going to keep working on or maintain or do within smaller groups, so that every student has great success this year. So why now is, I think I pretty much brought that together. It's the beginning of a new year. We need, and with the new leadership, myself, also pretty much a new leadership team, that we all need to get together on the same page. And I appreciate this quote, that vision comes alive when everyone sees where his or her contribution makes a difference. And really making sure that within all of the things that are in with this, that any staff member on any given time and can say, this is what my part in these goals. This is my part in this plan. So that when we come together, we can do that work. So I just created a couple of, like, also the why now is that it's really well known that if we have strategic coherence, that's how things get done, and that's how students, we can make an impact with students. And so you can just see, like, when it's not coherent, we are over here, and when it's coherent, that we're aligned, and that we can see that that's where we can see more academic growth from kids. And so that's the goals, that we are coherent to start the year. So the process so far is that even before I got here was a lot of preparation and reviewing the feedback that had been provided to me around things happening across the district in terms of the strategic plan and all that types of things, documents, input, and data. Some of this will be a little bit of a repeat for some of you from our work session. At our leadership retreat with the other instructional leaders, we took time to slow down and talk about that, and that we made sure that we had drafted goals that connected to the mission vision to the strategic plan. So I think if I go back, I go back right here to this kind of triangle of looking at how a strategic plan works and how to get things done and towards that mission vision, is we had all these elements of the triangle, but we were missing those goals. And so we needed really to connect those aspirational components to the strategic components. And so that, just going back to that real quick. So then we had our leadership retreat, and then we had our staff week, and that's where we used this as an opportunity to come together with our staff and test drive this idea of a more simplified view of the strategic plan, and as simple as a one-pager of just saying, here's our mission vision, here's the strategic plan, and here are the goals that are going to help us get there, that we can narrow our conversation around, because all of these components can fit within these really important goals for students around really the key areas for what we want students to be able to do and what we need for our district. So we did that, and also a lot of feedback going on around that. And so I'll tell you about that. Then we came to the work session, and you all here were part of that work session where I got more feedback about that. And so I'm here to share a little bit more about the progress and some of the questions and things that you brought up at the feedback session. I think you'll see in where we are in our work currently. Going forward, we will continue to synthesize the feedback and align the mission, vision, and goals with the strategic plan and integrate new data. So we have new data coming in as we learn from, we take more input from our teachers. Also, we have new data coming from like the PSAT and SAT data, and different things coming in. We will also have our beginning of year data from our NWEA and some of our early data coming in from literacy assessments, things like that, that we'll be able to make sure that those are in alignment, that those are integrated into the goals. And between September and October, we're articulating and prioritizing goals, measures of success, and action items. So this will make a little more sense in a visual, just so you know where I'm going and where we're going together. I did share, these are the 3 drafted goals that our leadership team drafted based on the elements of the strategic plan, our student data, and the mission vision, that we can all come together around goals around a healthy community, engaging learning, and cohesive systems and structures. And I think when you think about our strategic plan, that the established strategic plan, you'll see a lot of elements of the healthy community engaging learning in this strategic plan. What you don't see a lot of language around, which is really important to articulate, is that when we're thinking about the strategic plan for the district, that we're also articulating what do we need around cohesive systems and structures. We think about our financial health, we think about human resources, we think about communication, all of those things that allow the other 2 to happen. And so I think that's, for me, was the part around the strategic plan that I was looking to try to bring together, is how does the whole district operate in service of the community and the learning for students. So those are the goals. And then you saw that, how that was integrated with the strategic plan. I know I'm reviewing a few of the elements, but for our community that's listening, this helps you kind of see where are we going, and how are we doing that together. So we've been seeing these goals in action, and so I wanted to share some elements of how these goals are already in action. So really, when you're bringing together a community to try to get behind a few key measures, is that you need to put them in action frequently. And so where you can see we use the healthy community goal when we brought in our MACUS partners to show this is a part of our healthy community goal when they spoke to all of us at the staff week. Medicine Horse, the library, all of our major community partners came and shared, and so that's connected to that goal. During PD, we added a guiding question around how might I build my classroom culture with students to ensure they experience challenging and rigorous learning every day. So that was the goal that was guiding that PD as they went and engaged in different conversations and topics. And then even seeing those goals show up in meetings. This was from our operational leaders meeting last week, when we dug into the communication practices and the plans, and that's helping them understand what is your role in this, and they're key voices in those building those cohesive systems and structures. And so that's just how they're showing up. So how those goals show in action, that we would be seeing those carry through in all that we do this year. We've been analyzing the goals, and these are the criteria in which the staff was asked to analyze these goals to make sure that we're on the right track. So are they inspirational? Do they connect to our mission vision? Are they clear? Do these goals help me reflect on my own practice? And this is our current feedback to those. So you can see we have high levels 3 and 4 are, I'm really excited, I'm excited, or I'm really excited. So those are all showing at our current response rates to be about 60% in the high support of the goals. And then in support of the goals is the next one down. So definitely people seeing themselves in these goals and how that could come together. And then here's the part that this is the crazy graphic that's trying to show how this is all coming together for students. And so again, this is all under the umbrella of the mission and vision. And then you can see those 3 goals really feeding into that, everything connected to what we do for students. And then the outcomes from the strategic plan are feeding into all of those goals. And I'll show you how that plays out in terms of like a work progress in action. So you can see how this is going to work in the day-to-day. Mostly this work will be connected, of the day-to-day work will be my work with the support of Audion and Molly, our Molly Ender, our school social worker, because she kind of holds that social emotional community aspect, with Audion holding that the academic and the learning aspect. So and then our school leaders. So what does that look like? So this is not something that you need to know that or track or engage in, but this is how it will work out for us in terms of how we see that coming together day to day, in terms of this is just a screenshot of a tracker of how this would work as a district level tracking in terms of our goal, the measures of success, and then what are the actual action items. And so one thing, I circled that measure of success because that is the work in the next month and a half, is to really articulate what is it, how are we going to measure success when it comes to healthy community. So what actually tomorrow Molly, Ade, and I are doing is going to be looking through some of the different, we already started this work of the different measures we have when we say when it comes to healthy community. Do we have a school climate survey? Are students reporting on that? Are parents reporting on that? Which rubrics in our current strategic plan will really help inform our measure of success? Is it participation data at conferences? That's a really good measure of success. Survey data, internal and external reviews. So those are the things that we need to identify as the most important pieces of evidence that we keep as our indicator of how we're doing. And then you'll see, back, sorry. I just blew up. So this is where I wanted to really show clearly to you how the strategic plan is showing up in this plan. And you can see that if these are some of the action items that are being drafted or are already in place, then you can see the clear linkage to the plan, like articulating a student referral system. Well, that doesn't say that in here, but that has been identified as a key priority from a number of our school leaders. And how are we referring students to getting additional supports or anything like that, that we have a clear process on that. It's not in this plan, but the elements of it are under 2B and 4C. So that's just how we're crosswalking it. And I think that was something that this group really wanted to kind of to see and understand, how does that all come together. So we've been doing that work of crosswalking the document so that we have a place to come back to and keep track. Ultimately, everything along this work plan document is pushing us towards that healthy community goal. So that, and within that, this is at a district level. And so then the important part is to see that then the school, each school will have its own plan that will mirror this, but will have far fewer action steps. So if you can imagine, I'm guessing, I'm not speaking for elementary or anybody on elementary, but one of their key actions this year is the implementation in the work around the new mathematics curriculum. And that is directly aligned with the engaging learning goal. So their action plan is probably going to have a few key steps that are around that. So that's basically kind of that overview of how that's going to work and how we're going to track that work and how we'll be bringing this back to our leaders, but also bringing it back to our teachers. I just wanted to kind of, just so you get a chance to know a little bit about how I work. This plan, do, study, act cycle. I call it a short cycle, is that we do these often and frequently, that no matter where we are at any time, we have a chance to get feedback, we have a chance to study how we're doing and make adjustments. And so that will be, this whole process is engaging in that cycle as we build it. It's not something that it's there and then we put it in gold and that's our plan, is that we're always, we're holding the goal and holding those measures of success really clearly, but as we work on those action items, we're adjusting as we're getting good information about what's working and what's not. So our next steps is over the next couple of weeks that we are doing what we're doing is that we're synthesizing the feedback, continuing to align in our work in that plan, and that we're sharing that with our community. And that we're articulating and prioritizing our action plan for the district. We have a long list in that strategic plan around already for some of those district level things that we're already identifying. You need to prioritize what are the most important things that we're doing. And that'll be the work of the leadership team coming together. What are the district action items? And then in September and October, we'll be doing the same for the school goals, for the school based. And so our school leaders will be working with their teams to identify what are the key action areas in their work at the school level that are in service of those goals. And one thing I didn't say, I should have said it right at the beginning, is all of this informs our UIP process with the state of Colorado. That UIP should be it should just be a reflection of what we've already identified as the most important work. Shouldn't be a different thing over here. Those should be talking to each other, and so that we're not doing a different process for the state. So we can be sharing the work that we're doing here within that UIP process. And now through May 2026 is we'll implement the plan, we'll embed PD, and we will monitor progress, and we'll continue to engage in ongoing feedback and analysis cycles with staff, community, and the BO, and with you all, the Board of Education, that everything should kind of be in this constant process of reflect and adjust. Again, the goal of all of this, that we are really clear in the 25-26 school year around what are our goals and what does that mean for all of us together. And then, like I said, what's our own contribution in that? So everybody, I guess I didn't say in here, the one other piece that connects to the individual component is that when individuals are reflecting and setting their goals for the school year with their supervisor, they're under those same 3 categories. And so if I'm a teacher, I'm thinking, what's my goal around building healthy community and engaging learning, and are there systems and structures? Same thing for somebody on our facilities team. How am I contributing to healthy community? And maybe they're focused more on the systems and structures. So that's an overview of where we are in the process to get towards really clear goals and action items for this year for the district. So that's the overview. Questions?
Who wants to go first? Anybody?
Victor?
Well, I will say that, first of all, Ms. Hazelton, I feel like, I appreciate just the real organization and thoughtfulness as it relates to how you're going about trying to pull together complex system in a simplistic way as much as possible. For example, the one pager that you gave to all staff around the goals and the vision and the strategic plan is easy for people to say, okay, I get it. And then in addition to that, then this structure underneath that, as far as gathering information, looking at that, I think you called it act, plan, study, and do.
Yeah.
That process is the process of continuously improving, continuously learning, and continuously changing. And my hope is that while this is all happening, it's still connected to the people doing the work. Because in the end, they're the ones that really have to see and understand. We do too, as board members, you know, because we have to understand, we're monitoring, we're doing this every month.
Yeah.
You know, and so all of us do, and our community does as well. So anyway, I just wanted to tell you that I appreciate the thoughtfulness, the structure, and the comprehensiveness of your plan.
I'll just add to that comment that I think in a typical cycle year, we would want to be starting this in March and being able to get more of that boots on the ground input. And we're also looking at what are our leadership structures to make sure that we have those folks in the room while this is going on. I think the process of starting is getting as much of that input as we can as possible to
So
start
do you
the
see
year.
yourself in March this next year, you think?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, that people are leaving for the summer, feeling like they've had input onto, you know, because we're in that reflective mode in March, April, and May. We're starting to get really good information about what's working, what's not, what we need to prioritize, deprioritize, and that we get that information so people leave for the summer knowing how, so that when they walk in, they're like, yep, this is what we're really working on. There might be some course corrections based on new information over the summer, but not that. So it is a bit of a scramble as a new superintendent, but I think that we build the process in.
I like what you've been putting together. It's succinct and I like the plan.
Rachel?
Great.
Craig, anything to add?
I really appreciate that, you're putting a lot of work into this and, making it, more approachable for the staff. I think the important thing is that the work that's been done on the strategic plan and our direction is still being made relevant to the staff and to the district so that we still maintain our alignment that we're seeking. So, thank you.
Okay. I am going to ask a couple of clarifying questions. Plan, do, study, act makes a lot of sense. We probably should incorporate that into some of the things that you're asking the board to follow through as well, so that we're walking in the same step. I want to just clarify, mostly for everyone, that although we no longer have a large publication that looks like a book that we're all sent home to read, and we now have one page, that does not mean that we do not have a strategic plan that is in place with the same initiatives and the same robust rubrics that the board will be looking to review. And not only review, but ascertain differences year over year, which you're working on an entire, you're planning to create and then be able to present to the board so that we can study, right? And then act. So it goes right in line with your plan, do, study, act. Clarifying question from me personally, as I look at your planning phase and your plan, much of the planning is data. And I would like to have an idea of, I'm gonna hold up the mirror a little bit to the whole district in planning for relevant data. Right now, we have 26 responses to one piece of your survey and 33 responses to the other, which you're reporting on. We have a staff of around 100 people. So you're anywhere between 26 to 33% participation. Have you discussed or have you thought of how you're going to get that participation into real relevant numbers where you are getting full feedback and it's from all staff? Because that has been a problem in the past where people will say that they will participate or want to participate, but then when the rubber meets the road, they show up at 11th hour without the full picture. And I'm trying to understand, how are we going to reach all the staff? And I'm kind of looking at your new HR coordinator over there too. I think you guys are trying to think about this differently. So have you spoken about that? Because this survey's still open, maybe you have a plan to go back. How are you gonna get more data?
Well, I can give a good example of that, and part of it is the implementation of a district-wide time at most of our Fridays. So that's now part of what we're doing together, and that when we do that together, we're sharing progress or ideas or things we need input for it, and then getting that feedback in those sessions. And so in that, we haven't fully analyzed yet, that as a part of this process in the session with all of the staff, we have a bunch of data where they looked at this work and they thought about their own work, and we have these chart papers of like what feels really strong, what is confusing, what are the questions, and Heather has synthesized that into documents, and that's part of the plan for Molly and Audion and I is to continue to look through that. So especially when we get to prioritization of some of those action steps, our staff has already given us some feedback and input on that. And so I think the best data is through the process that we implement with people in the room. And that we're collecting that information on site, able to listen to it, hear it. A good other example would be on Friday. Audion and Tira went with our classified staff and they gave the beginning of info. They ran out of time they were looking at the different classified evaluations. And we gave them some other ones to look at from external to say, like, okay, what do you think about your evaluation process? What parts of it have worked? What parts haven't? Which tools do you like? Do you not like? Because we want input from them on that. So that's really a little bit more of the plan, do, study, act, but I think we really have to identify. I thought there's a good book out there called Street Data, and it's like all of the different ways you get good information.
Right.
So a survey is only one way, and it's not, I mean, we get surveyed to, we get
that's
so
part of
many
my
surveys. So our goal is to get it with people when they're in it, and then that's when there's a great exchange of ideas and hearing each other's perspectives. So, you know, somebody at the high school might really think this is, you know, really speaks to them, but then they get to hear from another role and say, oh, actually, this doesn't, I don't have any connection here. So,
Mhm.
so those are the things we have, and that's kind of that continuous improvement. So you're always getting that information.
So just encouraging, or from my seat, encouraging that we really are.
Yeah.
Let's just be clear and open about what those numbers look like and how we're collecting all the voices. And if it's in person and it's face to face through a PD or a work session, then we need to make sure that we're reporting that. I also wanted to bring to light, and maybe you were not ready for this, but I'm gonna burst your bubble. And you have it here on your presentation with your portrait of a graduate. So there's been a lot of portrait work done over the last several years, starting with Portrait of a Graduate, which was a very inclusive process, and we've carried Portrait of a Graduate for several years. Then we, as a board with our former superintendent, also dove into Portrait of a District, which helped many people understand how all those components and pieces work together and the plate that you build the district from. Because we're not all educators, and we're looking at how it all, from a governance standpoint, how does it work together? But I wanted to ask you if you could elaborate a bit or explain the work that you did, which does align to this work. And I think it's relevant because I would encourage you to bring it to light, which is the portrait of a staff member, correct?
Yep.
Can you just bring us up to speed? So this portrait work is evolving over time, which I think is pretty cool because nobody else is doing this.
Right. Well, and that was actually one of the, what people really, if you were to look at those chart papers around what really resonates with our staff and what they believe in, and that's in it, it does, it crosses across the district, is around those, the value around the portrait, the competencies. So that came out strong in that conversation where I would say the heart, the question, it also came through in the feedback, that's some of the feedback that I've received incoming. Yeah, so one of our activities together, coming together, was portrait of a staff member. I think there's a picture of it in Mancus Matters of like the blob or Bob, or where basically we used it as a connection activity, but also to connect those competencies to who we are as staff members. And so we've been doing work around that, and also identifying some norms in terms of the way in which that we want to be together as a community. And so we have a lot of drafty language around that, and a lot of work that the teachers have, a lot of thinking that they put into that. So with that, how we might articulate that is, especially when you think about onboarding new staff and writing, you know, what does it mean to be a staff member in Mancus? So you could see this going a lot of ways, but I think the main thing is that it's something that we can anchor to, our staff see themselves in that and can use that as a platform for conversations about how we work together and how we show up in the things that we do. So it's in development. There's a lot of ways it can go, but I think it's the same way that we would be developing it and working on making it that our students think about it, know it, can use it in their language, which is a big priority that will be showing up in those action items as well. So yeah, if we're talking about it with kids, we need to be thinking about it for ourselves, because it makes just making that language more present and showing up in what we do.
I think it also makes it all very understandable, a bit more, a bit easier to navigate. Obviously one sheet versus a book, right? One demonstrative picture, if you will, of a portrait. And so I would encourage you to keep going with that work as it fits into the cycle. And I think that this is just my perception. It sounds like you're going to be cycling through with especially staff as needed And every year that we take another look at the portrait of a graduate, and we have brought it back to look at those competencies or look at the portrait of a district, we all go, oh yeah, it's a good like reminder or reset for all of us to really understand our role and where we fit and how this strat plan aligns to not just our district, but all of the individuals inside of that district, from students to staff to us as board members. So kudos for summarizing it down into a much more digestible format per se. Maybe that's a better way to put it. It's good
It'll
work.
take time, I think, really getting people's voice into it to see where, trying to leave a real open door for kind of how it
Mhm.
continues to be articulated or shared out, so that more
Yeah.
voices are more.
Ms. Hazelton, I'll just reiterate, I don't wanna say it over again, so to speak, but you're just beginning this process, so. So I know there's a lot of work and you've explained a lot of the details around this work that you guys are doing. But wherever possible and whenever possible, when you're presenting to the board, like, I'm just thinking about the objectives and the reports that we get. Please share like how you got feedback.
Mhm.
The various ways you got feedback to determine whatever it is that you're presenting to us, because it's just helpful, because one of the concerns is that we haven't gotten a lot of feedback from our staff or from our operations or food service or all the folks that work for our district. And if there's a way to bridge that and get their feedback and make that part of the data and information and help us know how that's happened, it would make some of us or all of us feel better.
Yeah, well, I think that goes to that, what we haven't articulated is what are those measures
Yeah.
of success and what that is, and thinking, really analyzing the access points for that feedback in terms of who has access to giving that feedback and the different types of feedback, you know, the different types of evidence, should I say. It's not just feedback. We want to have evidence of like, let's look at student work and look at it for complexity. That's what we need to be able to think about, and know, how do the students engage with that? How do they feel when they're doing that? So that's gonna take some time for us as a community really identify, but yeah, thanks for that.
Very good work. Okay. I think we are ready to, as long as nobody has anything else to offer, Faye, Rachel. Okay, we're gonna move into policy, as indicated, prior to, we did strike, the first three policies that are there listed in the agenda, which leads us to, three policies, KLG, KLGR, JRA, JRC. The new policy that is being proposed is KLGR. And we do have some things to discuss, which we should be doing here as related to those three policies. These policies will, then be, put to, board consent through a emergency resolution, as they are required to be adopted in a form prior to September 1, or we are subject to a $50,000 fine, which I don't think any of us will afford, and Chrissy's already glaring at me. So, KLG, let's just go down the list. So KLG, is, the policy itself is relations with state and federal agencies. I would like anyone to, please bring to light any changes you'd like to see, or do you believe that it sits well as it has been presented? Anybody? I'll give you a minute to pull it up. By the way, this is an existing policy. We're just redlining a few changes as per the recommendation of the Colorado Association of School Boards.
I think that was pretty straightforward.
Rachel says she has no concerns, right? Craig, do you have any concerns?
No.
Okay, Mr. Hunter? And Mr. Figueroa, okay. There are no concerns with KLG. All right, that being said, let's go back to look at KLGR, which is a relations with federal immigration officials. This is a brand new policy that has to be now adopted, and there are a couple of different areas of this policy in which we have to slot in some information, and name individuals. And Mrs. Hazelton, I'm gonna go to you first because the responsibility of the policy does lie with you. And I would like to ask your recommendation for 4A and 4B, please. If you would give us those recommendations first.
Yeah, I would recommend that the district designated employee be me to handle immigration matters, and if I'm unable to attend this matter, I would name 2 employees, the elementary and middle school, high school principal as backup. They're the closest and most able to lead their posts, as our early learning center director is also teaching. So,
Okay, so we'll have 2 alternates rather than 1 alternate, if the designated individual yourself is unable to attend to the matter. That would be great. Does anybody here sitting at this table have any opposition to that? No, 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 no. Okay. So we'll need to make a note that we'll have to adjust the policy with that specific, that the policy will be adjusted with that specific information and adopted as such. And then I believe that there is one more. There's one more bit of information that is needed, and I believe that that is in JRA, JRC. So if we can move to JRA, JRC. Does anybody first see any other issues with KLGR? No. Okay. So in JRA, JRC, you could take a look. This is a 8-page policy, so it's a bit longer. And there are some notes to be made in our adoption in which we have to name a date that is specific to parents or eligible students having the right to refuse to permit the designation of any categories in this policy to be included in a directory. And so it is a right of refusal, essentially. And that date, Mrs. Hazelton, will you give us your suggestion as to the specific date that we should include in that policy?
yeah, I'm suggesting October 1st.
Okay.
Because that allows registration period, time for our office staff to review things, and also the parent teacher conference time in September. So if there's people coming in and we need to get clarity, or they want to change things, that gives the parents the opportunity to do that.
So that is under the disclosure of directory information in policy JRA, JRC. And that will need to be inserted specific to October 1st, unless does any board member have any feedback or anything in opposition of that date? Is everybody okay with October 1st? October 1st, yes, okay. Okay, I do not believe that there's any other disclosures that are needed, and I'm gonna move on as long as you all have reviewed those 3 policies. That is the discussion that was needed today. Are we okay to move on? Yes, okay, great. Okay, this brings us to the consent agenda. And I will then be asking for a motion. And please keep in mind that we have struck from the consent agenda 9B. And we have amended already 9D.
I would move that we adopt all consent agendas except for E and I.
So we have a first to adopt consent agenda 9A through all the way through 9J and remove E and I. Would we also like to remove J before we move forward, as I believe that, did you want to address that with an explanation?
Jay, I'm keeping up on board books here. I think that we want to wait to address any questions on J.
So let's remove J, if you could amend your motion.
I will
please.
amend my motion to exclude J as well.
All right, so now we have a motion to move forward with 9A through J with the removal of
IJ.
E, I, and J. Do we have a second?
Second.
Craig will second that. Is there any discussion before we move forward on what we're approving other than what we're moving forward with other than what's removed?
I did have one, for 9H under the calendar. We had made a change. We need to put that in there now. For, November meeting, move to the 10th instead of the
So we'll
17th.
remove, so let's just remove H and come back to it. Okay, so we're gonna amend the motion again to go 9. Go ahead.
We can change our calendar at any time at our will.
I know, this was in board, superintendent related policy, it's new policy to at least start with a approved policy or approved calendar and rolling planning calendar. That's per policy, so
Okay.
it's new policy.
Okay.
Okay, do you want to restate your motion or would you like me to?
So consent is A, C, part of D, F. And that's it.
Okay, do we have a, and G, G's in there too. Consent agendas are hard when they're big.
Correct.
We have a second.
Second.
Craig seconds. I'm gonna restate the motion. Since the discussion came. So the motion has been made to approve consent agenda items A, remove B, C, D with the adoption or remove D, right?
Yes,
E, F. Nope, we have to remove F, sorry. E, G, remove H, remove I, remove J.
I believe F can stay because it's within I, so we'd have to do the capital reserve.
No, because we have to read your resolution.
Good.
All right, Tiffany, will you please call to question?
Miss Emily Hutchinson Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Tim Hunter, or Mr. Victor Figueroa,
Aye.
Mr. Greg Benelli,
Aye.
Miss Rachel McWhirter.
Motion carries 5-0. All right, now we're gonna go back down through and we're gonna revisit. Let's see here, we're gonna revisit 9. Let's see here, 9E. So we have a emergency resolution to adopt the policy in which we just discussed. And those discussions were captured in our conversation, in our discussion. And this resolution to adopt this policy will be inclusive of what we all stated and agreed to. Mr. Benally, you are going to have the floor for a bit of time.
All right, so this is
Your motion is,
I move to accept the resolution for emergency approval of the policies. Whereas Senate Bill 25-276, protects civil rights - immigration status, enacted by the Colorado General Assembly and signed into law by Governor Polis on May 23rd, 2025, strengthens civil rights protections and data privacy requirements for persons in Colorado irrespective of immigration status. And whereas under Senate Bill 25-276, Colorado public schools, including district operated and district authorized charter schools, are prohibited from collecting or providing personnel identifying information to federal immigration enforcement authorities unless required by law or necessary to perform the entity's function, and additionally must adopt and make available written policies that detail: number one, procedures for responding to requests from federal immigration enforcement authorities for personnel identifying information concerning enrolled students or their families. Number two, procedures governing access by federal immigration enforcement authorities in non-public areas of school property, ensuring access is permitted only if the authority presents a valid federal warrant, whereas non-compliance may result in injunctive relief and civil penalties up to $500,000 per violation, whereas the board finds that it is necessary to authorize emergency adoption, revision, or suspension of policies to address compliance with state law, particularly CRS 24-74.1-102, and to maintain protections of immigration students or immigrant students and their families. Now therefore be it resolved that the Memphis School District RE6 Board of Education hereby authorizes the superintendent in consultation with legal counsel to temporarily approve policies, procedures, and guidance as necessary to address the legal and operational impacts of the CRS 24-74.1-102, and be it further resolved that such emergency policies will be presented to the board for review and ratification at the next regularly scheduled meeting or as soon as practicable. And be it further resolved, following the emergency adoption, that the board intends to follow the adoption procedures outlined in board policy BG in order to permanently adopt the policy. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall take immediate effect upon adoption, adopted and approved this 25th of August, 2025.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a first and we have a second of the emergency adoption of the immigration policies as outlined in KLG, KLG-R, and JRA-JRC. Any other discussion?
I would just like to say this is being done in order to comply with state law under the duress of extreme fines and penalties.
Okay,
We have a segment of our population that will not agree with this.
correct. It has been dictated by the legislature. Tiffany, can you please call to question without any further comment?
Miss Emily Hutchinson Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Tim Hunter,
Aye.
Mr. Victor Figueroa,
Aye.
Mr. Craig Benelli,
Aye.
Miss Rachel McWhirter.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. All right, I am going to ask Mrs. McWhirter to please address the board in regard to 9F and the resolution that is before you with a motion, please.
Madam President, I move to combine 9F with 9I. And move that we adopt the following resolution according to Colorado statute 22-45-103. The Board of Education authorizes the year-end or the budget for FY 26 capital reserve expenditure of $7,730 to Mencino Manufacturing for the purchase of the cheerleading mats to support the safety of our district cheer teams.
I second that.
We have a first and we have a second. I'll restate the motion. This is in order to affirm or adopt the capital reserve resolution for the purchase of the mats to support the safety of our students, specifically our cheer team. Any other discussion needed?
And to approve the bills.
And the bills. Any other discussion? Tiffany, will you please call the question?
Miss Emily Hutchinson Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Tim Hunter,
Aye.
Mr. Victor Figueroa,
Aye.
Mr. Craig Benelli.
Aye.
Miss Rachel McWhirter.
Aye.
Excellent, motion carries 5-0. 9H, we're calling this out because we're gonna make an adjustment, I believe, to our board calendar and our rolling planning document. The rolling planning document is referenced in the BSR policy as well as our calendar. Our calendar does adjust at times due to various needs. And the proposed change is to move the November 17th meeting up to November 10th. At this point in time, that is a work session and a meeting. We will keep all of the timelines the same. I have one further question I did not bring up earlier today. And that is, would the board like to see, since this is our obligatory calendar of our obligations as board members, And there is an obligation that various board members in certain seats attend district accountability committee meetings. However, I know that you're structuring that still. Do we wish to add the DAC meetings to our calendar, or should we just leave it off and allow you to send a specific invite? Do you guys want that or not want that?
I think we leave it off for now, and then kind of
Yeah.
figure out what we do.
Do you want me to give a little more clarity to the
Right.
board on that?
Yeah, sure.
Just knowing that we have a small community and a board, very active board, when Sarah, Rank and I were talking about how that could work rather than having multiple committee meetings, having at one time, time and many obligations by the board members, that on the month that one board member might be assigned a committee, that they would come to that meeting, which would mean 1 to 2 meetings per year for that board meeting, not coming each time, every time the committee meets. If in a particular year, a particular time, a committee needed to be really digging into something, that might increase obligations if that was the work of the committee to, you know, say work on something. So it's looking like once or twice a year to join those, to be, you know, to have that representation, that would be rotating. So if one board member would come 1 month, another month. So thinking about your obligations.
And is it typically gonna follow the Tuesday after
Yeah.
the first work session? Is
Yeah,
that
it's
your?
following a similar pattern, and Sarah would have to be reminded, but she liked the cadence of that.
Okay.
And so it's similar that then after that, a member of that group would come to the work session prior to the board meeting.
Okay,
Is that similar to last year?
prior to the board meeting, so between the work session and the board meeting is similar.
Yes.
Okay, so what I would do or recommend that we do is at the bottom left of our calendar where it says TBD, summer BOE retreat, June or July, I would all put TBD DAC obligations. So that we are obligated, but we are not naming the specific date of the obligation. We're letting you all invite whomever needs to come. So that we're not leaving DAC off. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Just a little, but you're where that footnote is, Tiffany? Do you see on down on the bottom corner? Can you put that there? So it'll just be TBD DAC obligation or DAC meetings as obligated. Okay, any other discussion?
Can we do the rolling planner as well, or is this just the calendar?
No, you can, is there any discussion needed around the rolling planner?
I just had a question, as far as the strategic plan goes. I'm wondering why we split it between the 2 months, between the review and the adoption, or the approval, instead of just having the first work session of the month, we get the strategic plan. The second work session, we get any updates that we might need, and then we're able to approve it that same month instead of crisscrossing them. I was just wondering what the process, why the process was a 2-month span instead of a month.
In the past, it was my understanding that this is really a question geared towards you, Ms. Singleton, because it was our understanding that the person doing the reporting wanted as much time as possible to go adapt to our request, gather data, rewrite, and then represent. And I know that we've massaged our calendar a bit, but there still is it's not exactly a month, you know, it's not a month, it's a week or two. So I think that's really up to you to determine whether or not you can do that.
Yeah, and I feel it's a little early for me to make a specific recommendation on that cycle, especially as we're looking at, would they be reporting on one objective versus a report on, like, where are we in engaging learning? And then that might be a 2-cycle where we really are digging into that with those objectives named. And so that's the work of our team, of identifying a bit of that cycle. So we would like to continue to follow a cycle for you all, so that's really clear of when and how those get shared out. But in terms of the cadence, and I'm not quite fully understanding of like, how much did they need to go back and do? Because I'd rather us come really prepared and give you the opportunity to engage with the evidence and, if there's some follow-up questions and things like that, then we could do that, but if it feels more helpful to the board to condense that to a work session and then a board meeting, then we can adjust that. I've talked to a few different members of our teams that have been a part of that cycle, but haven't lived it, so.
So for me, I guess I would keep it the same until you feel like you know what's kind of going on.
Yeah,
in
that's
the
kind of what we haven't. I
And
think
then
when we
come
read
back
that.
to us and say,
I'd like to
this
leave
is the
available
cadence
time-
we should have.
all the time available for you to make adjustments, changes.
Yeah, that's kind of how, when
Until
you were
you
that.
feel like you
way
can,
inclined.
until you feel like you can change that
Mhm.
Right,
timeframe.
just come to us.
Okay,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I will just propose that,
Right,
based on kind of now that where we are, that we would shift that up, but that's fine. That's
Yeah,
kind of
we
my
should
thought
put
was, go with it.
so what I would offer is that, because what we're also not considering here is that we have the need to also determine if we're going to push forward the superintendent review cycle by 2 months. And we've discussed it, but we have not really made a decision. And again, what I would offer is, I think that we can approve this rolling planning calendar as a work in progress this year to give the board, including potential new board members, our superintendent, time to flush out what's gonna stick, where it's gonna land. And then I would offer that we come back to this and revisit it at the end of the year. And then we can move everything around as it landed. What I would encourage the board to do, and you as well, Ms. Hazelton, is just don't lose sight of the pieces that are on the calendar. Because what we don't wanna do is skip, oh, we're not in that month anymore, but we didn't accomplish what was in that month. So that's why it's called a rolling calendar, so that you can roll things forward or a rolling planning calendar, so that you can roll them forward as they are accomplished or not accomplished. So that would be, I think we're okay to say thumbs up, but then we keep coming back to it. And I'm listening, okay. So we've had those changes discussed. Does anybody then want to make an actual official motion to adopt those things as we have discussed?
So moved.
There's our motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So to reiterate, the motion or restate the motion in its entirety, it's been moved to accept, the board calendar and the rolling planning document with aforementioned, changes and discussion items. Any other further discussion? No? Tiffany, please call the question.
Miss Emily Hutchinson Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Tim Hunter,
Aye.
Mr. Victor Figueroa,
I,
Mr. Craig Benelli.
Aye.
Miss Rachel McWhorter.
Motion carries 5-0. Last but not least, the election certifications are on our agenda here this evening, and Ms. Hazelton, I think you wanted to add some clarification around them
Right.
before the board actually
Yeah.
votes.
Just to give you an update, so September, tomorrow is the deadline for the approval or the signatures to go in for our intergovernmental agreement, which is pretty straightforward. These are all part of the election process and making sure that things are on the ballot, and so that is there for our approval and signature. That's a pretty standard agreement between our organization and the county clerk. And within that, it also states that after this, that we have one more component that's due by September 20th, I think is on there, is our Tabor notices, and so those will be put forth. It's just basically a final look at our ballot with some financial disclosure and a couple other pieces of information that are required. I think once we go forward with the certification of some of the ballot language, that we won't need to call the board back for that Tabor notice, as far as I can tell. But if we do, we would need to probably call a special Zoom meeting. But I do not think that's a part of the process. But the IGA, so that's in there. So that's a part of it. The other component is the ballot language certification, which is due on the 5th. And that is where we are confirming the language of the ballot. And so I did I was working with the Rural Schools Alliance folks just as part of my onboarding process and said, okay, I'm new in this seat with the election. What shall I be doing to make sure that we are really dialed and making sure that we tick all the boxes and that there's no question as things go to the ballot? And they suggested that I talk with Tracy Rainey at she's one of our partners with Rural School Alliance in the Colorado School Finance Project. And so she reviewed our ballot and made some suggestions for clarity. And so those are what I submitted there. And also then I took her suggestions and I sent it to Tom Peltz at Kutak Rock, who was the original person who worked with Todd in terms of the original ballot language, which was pretty much a replication of Cortez's. And so he wasn't surprised that we came back with a couple of tweaks. And so the main there's some slight changes in the ballot to make sure that it's clear for our voters. One is around just changing language to make sure it says staff, because it's said in one spot paraprofessionals and one spot teachers, and so they said just make it staff. Because it was confusing. The other part was ensuring that it says it grows with inflation, so that that we're not just asking for a flat rates, because then we could be shooting ourselves in the foot, and that it would just stay there, which can happen with the increases with I mean, it can happen anyways, but it's just really clear that we're not just asking for a flat rate, and in 5 years, we're still asking for that flat rate, that it's doing that. And then Tom added some language at the bottom to make sure that that's clear for voters of what that is, around what that means in terms of how do you calculate inflation? So he connected that to a state statute there. So those, you can see in that one document, just the record of the changes, and then I sent it back to Tracy. So with a little bit of back and forth between the lawyer and Tracy at Colorado School Finance Project. And so that is what those changes are. I think and rather than saying the actual rate of the mills, that they changed some of the language just so that it was clear for the voters, not getting caught up. So just as straightforward as possible. So that's basically based on that. So I just wanted to make sure it was clear what those slight changes were, just in terms of people. So then there is there's the actual letter that we need to have certified around ballot language. So if there's any questions about that, I can certainly answer them.
Any questions? Question or comment? Rachel, Craig? Okay, I need a motion in order to approve 9J.
Move we approve the election certifications as revised.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
All right, so we will be, I have a motion and a second to approve the ballot language certification and coordinated election documentation in 9J. With no further discussion, Tiffany, please call to question.
Ms. Emily Hutchinson Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Tim Hunter,
All right,
Mr. Victor Figueroa,
Aye.
Mr. Craig Benelli,
Aye.
Ms. Rachel McWhorter.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Just some quick reminders that the CASB Fall Regional Meeting is coming up on September 5th and 6th. Mr. Figueroa will be attending that and will report back to us at the September 15th meeting. We do have a work session on September 8th, along with a work session and a meeting on September 15th, beginning at 5. Future agenda items, we will be looking at our audit review and a presentation. There, we will be looking at our strategic plan, item 3C. We will be obviously recapping our fall meeting, and we will be having further consideration and conversation in regard to the student voice, the board seat, the policy related thereto, and the invigoration of that process in getting that rolling. Typically, I would do follow-up myself, but this year we're going to start doing our board meeting follow-up by various different board members throughout the course of the year. And I do want to reiterate that we're going to do the follow-up, and then after the follow-up, we will need a motion to adjourn. So we're actually going to motion to adjourn this year officially. And so, Mr. Figueroa, I would ask that you please walk us through the board debrief.
I'm sorry to interrupt real quick. I had one update I didn't include in my superintendent report
sure.
around the election, just that Tiffany and Heather have been working together to collect the school board candidate interest letters. Petitions, and we'll make sure that they take care of that process, I think, on September 2nd. The 3rd to submit those to the county clerk. And they will do that process per the way that it goes down, and you draw in terms of the order on the ballot, and that those will be turned in before, I think that due date is also the 5th.
Yep, we're planning on doing it the 4th.
Yeah.
So during the
just wanna
September
make sure I
meeting,
said
you
that.
can perhaps we'll make a note to have a little bit of an update from you as to what petitions were whatever the language is.
I just wanna make sure that that's
Solidified.
We also need to look at a meeting or a forum type date. And the way that that is going to be presented for the candidates.
So Mrs. Hazelton's all over that with
Oh,
Tiffany.
yeah,
That's,
we're good with that.
yeah, that's work in process.
And
That's
also just ask
Mhm.
for an update on the committee that is working on the ballot for
the mill.
the mill levy, just an update from the perspective of where are we in sense of communicating out to the community,
right,
whether you have any forums to
Right.
give information.
yes,
To
yeah.
provide, you know, because I know it's early still somewhat, but if you can give us kind of like, here's what that looks like right now. Not, I mean, don't give it to now, but like,
I'm gonna put it on
future
our
agenda
document.
item.
Got it, I think that's great, yeah, and I'll be able to provide a better update.
Yeah.
in
So-
that, yes.
So that update along with board election update, because there's plenty to be done by your position, there's a elected, whatever, designated election official.
Yeah.
So our designated election official will have more to share in regard to forums, petitions that were submitted and so forth during our September or October meeting, probably September 15th. Okay. And that is on our agenda. So, Mr. Figueroa, you are.
Okay, so, I just wanna reiterate. The purpose of the board debrief is for the board to look at the meeting that they just currently are in. And to answer any questions or to answer questions that I will ask in relations to how it was conducted. And so I'll start with the first question. Did you learn anything new tonight? And anybody can answer.
I did. I learned a bit more in regard to the participation rates and data and summary, coming out of the summary of the strategic plan being put into a more functional format for our district, and seeing some of that participation. You know, obviously I want to lift up that we try to find a way to make sure as many are participating as possible, because that is the way that your voice as a staff member will be heard. That's my learning tonight.
Anybody else? Okay, next question. Were you surprised by or unprepared for anything during the meeting? Okay. Were you able to communicate and be understood on all topics?
Yes.
Okay,
I will just say to that, that I hopefully in our one-to-one sessions, you can give me any feedback around. The things that I'm preparing, it's my first rodeo. So I appreciate that.
okay, next question. Did the board cross into operations during the meeting? And if so, when and how?
I don't think we're doing this one.
I didn't see anything that I noted.
I will point out that I interjected pretty quickly in regard to anything election. And that went for both mill as well as board, because we do have an election official. And it really needs to sit in the seat of the election official in all capacities and not the board in any
Sorry.
capacity.
Anything else? Okay, were there any decisions made by the board at this meeting that needed to be communicated to the public?
Well, I think our election is going to be communicated.
Right.
That's the main thing that needs to be communicated is about our mill levy.
I was gonna say ballot change in language, and I'm assuming that you all are, well, all of it.
I also say the new policy, I mean, that was big, that was not anything that we were looking at, so the cutoff dates. If anybody does want to do that, I think that also needs to be put out there.
Just make that policy available on the website.
Our date changes on our next, our meetings here in November.
Yep, that calendar has to be, the calendar has to be revised as per our conversation, and then we should be including that on that Board of Education website, which we normally do, so that will be uploaded. Perfect. Okay.
Okay, great. Is there any follow-up needed by board members, including any written communications or thank yous?
I don't think so.
Okay. And the last question, did the board hear anything that required new policy revisions or policies? Or review of policies and follow-up?
Yes, student voice, we will be revisiting all of that policy at the next meeting, as well as process. And then the policy in regard to, bless you, crosswalking named parties in policy, that is something that we will put on our eventual, work to do. And keeping in mind that there is a lot of work being done trying to get to board books, so we'll just put a pin in that, we need to come back to that. And dates, I think it's dates and names, right? Dates.
Okay,
Well, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
So I have a first and I also have a second to adjourn. Tiffany, and to adjourn the meeting this evening, Tiffany, can you please call the question?
Ms. Emily Hutchinson Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Ken Hunter.
Aye.
Mr. Victor Figueroa,
aye.
Mr. Craig Manelli.
Aye.
Ms. Rachel McWhorter.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. We are adjourned at 8:15.